Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. Okay, today we're going to talk about a starting point and why that is so important when it comes to training your brain to transform your business. So we're talking about what type of entrepreneur are you? Do you know what your entrepreneur type is? And if you do you know the next steps to take to continue to get to the next level? Why is this important? Well, our brains need to see things before it creates things. What do I mean by that? Well, your subconscious mind really is the one 80 to 90% of the time helping you create your decisions and take your action. So we need to make sure our subconscious mind is programmed with what we want, not what we're reacting to. So if you don't know what type of entrepreneur type you are, it will be hard for your brain to build a success pathway to get to where you want to go. It's like stepping into your car and then driving, wanting to get to a destination, but never putting the GPS on to get there. Your brain needs your directions, your input, your belief, and we're going to talk about that today, in order to get you where you want to go. So it's vital that you know where you're starting from. That's your entrepreneur type. And that's what we're talking about today in the Epic Success Podcast. So let's get to it. Hey, how you doing today? Dr. Shannon Irvine here. Wanting to talk to you about what type of entrepreneur are you? And I'm going to tie that back to running my businesses before from a place of scarcity and safety. If we don't know each other, my name is Dr. Shannon Irvine, and I help entrepreneurs train their thinking and manage their minds so they can master their business. I'm super excited to be with you today. And I want to talk about the subject of which entrepreneur story you're living from. So here's the thing, why I even got started in neuropsychology, why the idea of training your neural networks in your brain even entered into my life. And it wasn't because I had this burning desire to go and become the world's best neuropsychologist. It was because I had this massive story about safety, and the side of the coin that I coped with was control. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because in reality, if you haven't yet done the work around your thinking, if you haven't yet done the work around your emotions, and you are on autopilot, meaning you're not questioning the way you're thinking, you're not questioning the way you're doing things, you're not analyzing, you're not getting curious about what's going on in your thinking, then you are one of two types of entrepreneurs, and it lines up with a certain kind of structure in our brain. So here's the thing. If you haven't done any of this internal work, if you haven't started to really take your thinking off autopilot, if you haven't started to become the creator of your thoughts, then in reality, you're one of two types of entrepreneurs. Now, it aligns with that part of our brain that goes to fight or flight, that limbic system in our brain that gives us neurochemicals that says there's a threat coming my way. Remember, your entrepreneurship, naturally, our brains are not wired for. Our brains are wired to keep you safe and keep things familiar and keep things okay, but not keep it just keep it all here. Well, entrepreneurship is like the opposite of that, right? It is take risks, put yourself out there, be the biggest version of yourself, stand in the gap for people, serve, put yourself out there. All of that, which your brain, without any training, sees as a threat. So with that threat comes a response. And this is why I say entrepreneurs that haven't done this internal brain training is really going to fall in one of two groups. You're either going to fall in the fight group or the flight group. Now think about it. The last time you got into a big argument or you were really scared, you did one of two things. You either went in with all guns blazing, like punching away, fighting. If you're in an argument, you're the one yelling back, you're defending your right, you're fighting, right? Or you're the type of person that when a conflict comes up, when something happens, when it's coming your way, you exit stage left. You flee. You try to get out of it. You don't want conflict. You avoid it at all costs, even to your own detriment. So how that really transposes into entrepreneurship is in this fight or flight. So a person that falls in that natural being of fight is going to, they're going to really be the ones that are hustling and grinding and putting it out there and trying hard and sleeping when they're dead. And I told this story that that was definitely me. It was definitely my breakdown moment, which became my pivot moment, which became my very calling to serve you, which I'm so grateful to God that it has happened. But, had I thrown away that process, I wouldn't be here now. So there's gold. I always say, don't waste the pain, don't waste the struggle, don't waste the grind, because it's there to help other people. But I was a fighter, and I've got to really be protective of that stance, because it's a natural state of being for me. And what do I mean by that? I will work 24/7. I will grind it out. And guess what? Fighters, or people who fall into that category, tend to be somewhat successful, because the grind does help and hustle does work, and doing things in that intense manner will get you some notice, some movement. But here's the thing. It comes at a heavy, heavy cost. And that cost for me was nearly my health. Being that fighter type DNA, that striver, that I will hustle till my eyes bleed and I'll sleep when I'm dead. If you've thought that, said that, always the first there, always grinding, always grinding, always grinding. Now, the grind is not bad if you've really trained your thinking. If you really are coming from a place of being that is different. But if you haven't done that, then the reality is you are, and I was running my adrenals into the ground. I ended up in the hospital twice with tachycardia, which is where your heart won't stop beating because you're under so much internal stress that your heart thinks you're getting attacked, and your heart rate won't come back down. My heart was at 150 beats per minute for almost 2 days straight. And that happened a couple different times. And that was all driven from this place. Now hear me. If you haven't done the work, then there is something driving that fight. And in our culture, we actually value that. But here's the thing. That fight, if it's not coming from a true place of genuine service, and if it's coming from this place of, I am getting my value from what I'm doing, and so I'm going to do it hard and fast and as best as I can so I can get recognition, and so I can, yes, earn money, but it wasn't even about the money. It was so that I can be seen, so that I will finally be acknowledged and I will have value. So I really wanted people's attention. I wanted to be included, and I wanted the accolades. And I wanted that not for my ego, but, well, in a way it's for your ego, but almost as validation that I have value. So that's where that fight kind of entrepreneur mindset comes from. And it can be your biggest asset if you've done the brain training, if you've done the mind work around and training your thinking and training your emotions so that you know how to receive it, you know how to come from a really grounded place. Then you can go through seasons of grinding it out in a great place that won't burn out your adrenals, that won't do those things. So the second entrepreneur type is the person who responds with the flight, the person who, when things get hard, when an argument happens, when things come up in your life, you retreat, you pull back, you avoid conflict. You don't want that energy because it makes you feel less valuable. The act of it itself makes you feel like, I'm going to be seen, I'm going to be exposed, and if I'm exposed, then people are going to find out I'm not enough, and then it's going to be actually true, the thoughts that I have in my head. So the entrepreneur that does this is the perfectionist. Now, you can have perfectionist tendencies as the fight entrepreneur, right? But the true flight entrepreneur is the one that is making sure everything is like the most perfect, and it never gets actually put out on the market because it's not perfect enough. And that is their safety release valve, right? And they get overwhelmed. And one of my closest dear entrepreneur buddies is in that realm where they get overwhelmed and then they retreat. And then that in and of itself is this cyclical evidence that you're not enough. And then you retreat some more, and then you put something out there, and then you come back, and then you put something out there, and then you come back, and you're always kind of analyzing. And again, this could be your strongest gift once you start to really manage the way you're thinking. Once you really train your brain, your success pathways in your brain, remove those limiting belief pathways, right? Once you've done that work and continue to practice that and trust the process and start to become the version of yourself that you originally were intended to be without all those extra layers, without the fight or flight, then that analytical wanting to make sure it's the best for the people that you put out there really becomes an asset. But until then, it becomes your biggest liability. Isn't that interesting? Our biggest asset is our biggest liability. Once we actually step into and really, truly do the work. And this is what most people don't want to do. They'll put their little pinky toe in, and they'll try some affirmation. They'll try some law of attraction. They'll try some brain training. And as soon as there's some tension and it gets hard, you guys have heard me say all the time, lean into that resistance. That resistance is where the gold is at. But that is where people will pull back or fight, right? And try to do those things and go from this place of trying to get validation, trying to get affirmation, trying to feel of value, instead of doing the work and knowing that you have value to bring to the world every time you show up, because it's your calling, it's your gift, and you're giving it away. You're serving in that way. And it's a practice. It's a process. So some of the symptoms of both of these, we talked about procrastination. We talked about overwhelm. We talked about perfectionism. That's on the flight side of things. On the fight side of things, it's this frenetic energy, right? It's this, I have to be seen. I have to be the front of the class. Make sure you see me. Make sure you see me. Me. Look at me. Look at me. And it's interesting because most people that are in that flight, group, people kind of pull back from because it seems so intense, right? And in that category of fight is impatience. Let's go. Don't have time, right? Let's go. Come on. Gotta grind, which is a turnoff in terms of serving, right? So isn't that interesting? The very thing you want, you're actually retracting by trying to get your value from that. So I want to bring these two types up to you today. It's just kind of a parallel to what we were talking about yesterday with the live where I shared you my safety story. And there's always a story, a belief. Remember, a belief is just a thought repeated over time. And that is something that you agreed with as in a childhood or young adult state. And then you created this modus operandi as a way of being to cope as a child or as a young adult. And then that is running your business because it's 80% of your subconscious mind is running your business. And if you've never questioned it, if you've never taken that subconscious thinking off autopilot, learned the processes of the brain, learn how thinking and emotions and actions and reactions even happen, and learn to get in the space between the stimulus and the thought and the emotions so that you can choose what you're going to believe and therefore create the future that you want instead of the future that is reactionary. The fight or flight is a reaction, right? Think about it. Argument, reaction. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. And it breaks my heart when I see so many entrepreneurs going along and really just living from that place of not feeling valuable enough. One of the places I see this a lot is where I hear somebody say, I'm stuck. I'm stuck without, and the please help me. It can come from a good place, but it also can come from that flight state. can also come from that. I'm not sure I have enough. I better find somebody who knows more than me before I step out, right? Before I take a risk, before I get out there. So I want you to just challenge, just start to, again, become aware, open your mind up to, am I a fight or am I a flight? Am I getting my value in one way or the other from what I do versus just who I am from the moment I was born? Because that shift is the difference maker. We're all looking for the secret and the 3 steps to this and the 5 steps to Instagram and the 3 steps to my funnel. And I get those questions all the time. Can you tell me, I've seen you become so successful online. Can you tell me how you did your webinars? How did you do your podcast? How did you promote it? And all that stuff. I love sharing. I don't mind sharing that with you at all. And I love doing that in my paid groups. But the reality is the biggest difference that every successful entrepreneur will tell you is when they finally started to become the person that had the success before the success came. And that requires brain training. That requires this mind work. It requires the mind matrix that my students get to learn on how to remove limiting beliefs that have been programmed and driving that story of fight or flight. You don't want that driving your business. You want your calling, your vision, your passion for the people that you want to serve to be up front and center with the steering wheel driving the business, not fight, not flight, not looking to get validation, looking for your own value or anything like that, but really starting to lean into when I am in either that frenetic state of fight, go, hustle, grind, and trying to get value from that, trying to be seen. Now, we're all trying to be seen and heard because we want to serve people, but that comes from a totally different place than being seen and heard so that you are validated, right? Or that flight state where you're trying to make everything perfect, trying to do everything and analyze it perfectly before you even try, and then you try and then you jump back. Any of those type of behaviors in your business are the very thing that's keeping your business from getting to where you want it to be. And it's so challenging when you hear that, I know, but I love you enough to be challenging because it was when I discovered that that was the very thing that was holding me back. And that was the thing that could be my biggest asset once I finally stepped into who I needed to be to have the success I wanted to have. And that I decided that it required some process, that it required some work, that it required not in a hustle work way, but in I'm going to slow down to speed up way. I'm going to listen to what I'm thinking, look at my actions, look at my reactions, start a process of journaling. There's really a brain training process that I take my clients through, but it's a process that if you stick with it, the compound interest results that happen from it is that you then become the person that has $1 million business before you have $1 million business. And that's what opens the doors. That's what attracts people. That's what attracts the business. That's why people will feel like they know, like, and trust you, because you're no longer trying to get value from them or feel safe from them or know that you're enough from them, because you've done the internal work to know that all that is true. And you have an arsenal on your side of brain primings and different things that you have, tools that you have in your tool belt. And then you can finally start leaning into your entrepreneur business from a place of pure and total surrender and joy and desire to serve, and be all about the people that you're helping transform their lives in the unique and different way that only you can. And you feel free because you're finally free of that ball and chain of this is going to be the thing that shows that I'm enough. You already are enough. My students will hear me say this all the time. Imagine going into a newborn baby. I got this from my mentor, James Wedmore. Imagine walking into a newborn baby in a hospital, looking at that baby and say, you know what? You don't have enough worth to bring to the world until you go run a business or till you go do whatever, fill in the blank. No, that baby is full of worth, 100% possibility, can do anything that baby wants if they believe it. And to believe just means a thought repeated over time. So I'm curious where you are on the journey. What type of entrepreneur are you? Are you the fight or the flight? And what is going to be your first step toward finally just identifying that story and doing the process that it takes to train your brain to transform your business? I adore you. I cannot wait to see you break through. It is my number one joy to see you break through to understanding that you already have everything that you need within you. You already have what it takes. You can become the version of yourself that already has that multi-million-dollar business. And I'm not ashamed to say it. It feels a little weird to say it, but I've just worked out my 10-year plan. This year, I want to reach 1 million entrepreneurs by the end of 2019. And it is a big goal and it scares me to death. And when that happens, all of those doubts and things come up and then I get to work on them. And my 10-year goal is 10 million entrepreneurs. So I need now my process needs to become being the person that serves 10 million so that I can get there. Make sense? And I want to do at one of my intensives, I want to do a ceremony of like finally laying down the fight or flight weapon that you've used against yourself all this time so that you can truly step into who you really are without all the layers of what you've put on top that have held you back. All right, your entrepreneur type. I think you probably are starting to know what it is. If you have any questions around it, of course you can ask me, but I would really love to know what it is, where you think you are now, what type you think you are now, and where you want to go. Of course, like always, I would love for you to tag me on the socials, let me know what you've learned, and I want to make sure to invite you, if you haven't already registered, we have an upcoming live virtual video event all around learning to think like a millionaire entrepreneur so that you can finally be done with that feeling of like not enoughness of what am I missing? What piece of the puzzle do they have and I don't have? And to step into training your brain to transform your business, to remove those things that have been keeping you stuck and to build a success pathway that allows success to become easy, effortless, more fun, all the things that you got into business for originally, right? To have that freedom and decision making the way you want it and be able to spend the time the way you want it and make the impact you want. Well, that doesn't happen automatically. It happens when you train your brain. So I really want you to join us on this live event all around learning to think like a millionaire entrepreneur. The link to join us is in the show notes, and we will be live every day from October 3rd through the 9th. And I would love for you to jump in, learn about yourself so that you can become the entrepreneur that you want to be. All right, that's it for this week on the Epic Success Podcast. I can't wait to see you at the live event. Bye for now.